Welcome back to the Koger Center for the Arts on the campus of the University of South Carolina. The questions in this round will be premised on a fictional, but we think plausible, scenario involving terrorism and the response to it. Here is the premise. 3 shopping centers near major U.S. cities have been hit by suicide bombers. Hundreds are dead, thousands injured. A 4th attack has been averted when the attackers were captured off the Florida coast and taken to Guantanamo Bay, where they are being questioned. U.S. intelligence believes that another larger attack is planned and could come at any time. First question to you, Senator McCain. How aggressively would you interrogate those being held at Guantanamo Bay for information about where the next attack might be?
If I knew for sure that they had that kind of information, I, as the President of the United States, would take that responsibility. That is a million-to-one scenario. But only I would take that responsibility. The use of torture, we could never gain as much we would gain from that torture as we lose in world opinion. We do not torture people. When I was in Vietnam, one of the things that sustained us as we underwent torture ourselves is the knowledge that if we had our positions reversed and we were the captors, we would not impose that kind of treatment on them. It's not about the terrorists, it's about us. It's about what kind of country we are. And in fact, the more physical pain you inflict on someone, the more they're going to tell you what they think you want to know. It's about us as a nation. We have procedures for interrogation in the Army Field Manual. Those, I think, would be adequate in 999,000 of cases. And I think that if we agree to torture people, we will do ourselves great harm in the world.
Mayor Giuliani, the former director of Central Intelligence, George Tenet, the current head of the CIA, have both said that the most valuable intelligence tool they have had has been the information gained from what are called enhanced interrogation techniques, to include, presumably, waterboarding. What is your view of whether such techniques should be applied in a scenario like the one I described?
In the hypothetical that you gave me, which assumes that we know there's going to be another attack and these people know about it, I would tell the people who had to do the interrogation to use every method they could think of. Shouldn't be torture, but every method they can think of.
Waterboarding?
I'd say every method they could think of, and I would support them in doing that because I've seen what can happen when you make a mistake about this, and I don't want to see another 3,000 people dead in New York or anyplace else.
Governor Romney, I'd like to draw you out on this.
Yeah, first of all, let's make sure that we understand that the key in electing the next president is to find somebody who will make sure that that scenario doesn't ever happen. And the key to that is prevention. We've all spent a lot of time talking about what happens after the bomb goes off. The real question is, how do you prevent the bomb from going off? And that's what I spent my time doing as a governor over the last 4 years and serving on the Homeland Security Advisory Council. And that means intelligence and counterterrorism. Now, we're going to have, you said the person's going to be in Guantanamo. I'm glad they're at Guantanamo. I don't want them on our soil. I want them in Guantanamo when they don't get the access to lawyers they get when they're on our soil. I don't want them in our prisons. I want them there. Some people have said we ought to close Guantanamo. My view is we ought to double Guantanamo. We ought to make sure that the terrorists... And there's no question but that in a setting like that, where you have the ticking bomb, that the President of the United States, not the CIA interrogator, the President of the United States has to make the call. And enhanced interrogation techniques have to be used. Not torture, but enhanced interrogation techniques. Yes.
Governor Thompson, let me enrich the scenario just a little bit. Let's assume, for the sake of discussion here, that we now also have additional intelligence that indicates with high certainty that the attackers were trained in a West African country hostile to the United States in camps openly run by the terrorist organization that sent them. What kind of response would you agree to for that?
I would do the first thing that President Ronald Reagan would say: trust, but verify. Verify that that information is correct, and I would go in with all the power necessary. Colin Powell said, and I quote him, he says, if in fact you're going to war, have a reason to go to war, make sure you go with all the force necessary in order to do so, and have an exit strategy. If there's a country in Africa that is not friendly to America, that is anti-America and is promoting terrorism, and those terrorists are going to attack, it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that we do what is right. The President of the United States has got to lead that effort, and if it's necessary, it's got to take those camps out as deliberately and as methodically as possible, as long as that information is credible and can be checked and make sure that it is accurate.
Senator Brownback, if the decision were up to you, would you do that? And if so, would you decide to go to the United Nations, for example, first to seek some kind of international authorization to do it, or would you just move in the way that Governor Thompson described?
I would not go to the United Nations in the situation you've described. You've described a situation where American lives have been lost, and we think more are pending to lose. And I think the real question you have to have here as the chief executive, as the leader of the country, what are you measuring here? Is your primary concern U.S. lives, or is it how you're going to be perceived in the world? And my standard is U.S. lives. And I'm going to do everything within my power to protect U.S. lives, period. I will do it. I'll move aggressively forward on it. If we have to later ask and say, well, it shouldn't quite have been done this way or that way, that's the way it is. But the standard must be protection of U.S. lives. That's the job of President of the United States, and I would take it seriously, and I would do it.
How would you respond, Congressman Hunter?
Let me just say this would take a 1-minute conversation with the Secretary of Defense. I would call him up or call him in. I would say to SecDef, in terms of getting information that would save American lives, even if it involves very high-pressure techniques, one sentence: get the information. Have it back within an hour, and let's act on it. Let's execute with special operations or whoever else is necessary, and I will take full responsibility. Get the information.
I'm going to come to the others in a moment, but I want to circle back to you, Senator McCain. You've heard reference here from me and others of what the administration calls the enhanced interrogation techniques. Mm-hmm. I may have misunderstood you, but it sounded to me as if you regard those techniques, or from what you know about them, as torture. Do you?
Yes, and the interesting thing about that aspect is that during the debate, when we did the Detainee Treatment Act, there was a sharp division between those who had served in the military and those who hadn't. Virtually every senior officer, retired or active duty, starting with Colin Powell, General Vesey, and everyone else, agreed with my position that we should not torture people. One of their reasons is because if we do it, what happens to our military people when they're captured? And also they realize there's more to war than the battlefield. So yes, literally every retired military person and active duty military person who has actually been in battle and served for extended times in the military supported my position, and I'm glad of it.
All right. Thank you, Senator.